All right, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're gonna be talking about something very controversial, but very interesting because it's something we've all been waiting for. The new Switch, or should I call it the Switch OLED model. We all wanted a Switch Pro, but they came out and gave us this, which is not what we're looking forward to, but I do still think that it's exciting because this is new hardware, you know? We haven't had new hardware that's pushing the Switch in a forward direction. The Switch Lite was focusing more on the handheld portion of the Switch experience and all that stuff. So we never really had a Switch that was kind of like pushing more pro features. And you know, everyone wanted a Switch like called the Switch Pro, you know, something that was pushing a lot of pro features, but at least we got something with this. Bigger OLED screen and Ethernet port on the dock. You know, those are very basic upgrades, but I do think because the Switch has been so kind of outdated at this point, just these little features are, you know, they're substantial enough of something to be excited for. Since around like 2019, there was a whole bunch of rumors and leaks supposedly about what this new Switch was gonna be. Everyone was calling it the Switch Pro and all that stuff. And you know, that featured the bigger OLED screen. That's one of the main things that I first heard about this new Switch. They were always talking about a bigger screen. So that was always the main headline of all these things. But for whatever reason, I think around like last year, and I know a lot recently, like this year, there was reports starting to say that there's gonna be a new chip in the Switch that is gonna allow those things. So I don't know if it was ever a thing where these insiders got mixed up with a person that had wishful thinking about this whole thing, or there actually is something actually behind it, that there is a Switch that has a new chip in it, but this obviously isn't that one. With all that being said, I just wanted to go over the new features of the Switch we actually got, which is not the Switch Pro. It's not called that at all. It's not even, you know, but it is called the Switch OLED model. So I wanted to go take a look at that. Okay, here you go. Here it is. This is the Nintendo Switch OLED model. It says it's gonna be releasing October 8th. I believe that's the same day that Metroid Dread is gonna come out, which is pretty cool. You know, Nintendo usually drops a game with their consoles. We've seen this with Breath of the Wild with the original Switch. Then with the Switch Lite, they dropped Link's Awakening with that. And now with this new Switch OLED model, we're getting Metroid Dread, which is really cool. And the console's gonna be costing $349 or $350, whatever you wanna say. But yeah, there's a price upgrade. There's a $50 price upgrade, which is interesting. We now have a 7-inch OLED screen that's bigger than I think the 6.2-inch screen that was on the original Switch. The tablet itself is not bigger. The screen itself is bigger. So it's just a thing where old Switch's screen used to have a lot more of the bezel, and now this is just pushing it out more. I would have liked to see a edge-to-edge screen, but again, they could have just gave us an OLED screen and just kind of kept it within the same tablet, but they're overall upgrading the tablet on the physical outside parts of it, but not on the internal. So that brings us to the next thing, is that the kickstand has changed, which is really cool. This is actually very interesting and really nice upgrade, because again, they're making the tablet feel a little bit more premium, which I do think the original Nintendo Switch tablet is actually pretty premium. I do like the way the build is. I know there was some problems with some type of bending or like expanding, like the battery, there was like humps on them sometimes. Maybe with this one, they could fix that, but we don't know yet. We need to definitely play a lot of this new Switch to see that. But again, so we have a new adjustable stand, which is really cool. So back in the day, it used to just be a very small, like little kickstand, as you guys know, and now it's the entire back that goes down. It actually goes lower than the other one, so it actually goes like pretty flat, which is really cool. Okay, so the next thing we need to talk about is the built-in wired LAN port. So on the back of the Switch, on the original dock, there was a USB port back there that you could have connected the adapter you had bought from Nintendo, which I think was like $30, was an Ethernet connector. But now instead of having to buy that connector, they just made that USB thing the Ethernet port, which is actually really good. I know a lot of people are saying like, oh, we lost a USB port, but to be fair, I don't really know anyone who was using that back port for any other reason other than the Ethernet cord. I'm not saying people didn't, but in my opinion, I only use the ones in the front, because in the front of the dock, they actually have 2 USB ports, and they still have that on this one. So you at least still have 2 of them in the front, which is really good. Next feature we're gonna move on to is the internal storage, which I feel like is one of the most lackluster things that they added to this entire package here, which is only a 64 gigabyte internal storage. You know, I know this original Switch had only 32 gigabytes of storage, but I feel like it made kind of more sense back then, because it was like, the Switch was a brand new product, so it was like a very testing the waters type thing. Now Nintendo knows that this thing is proven and everything. It's like, you could have at least bare minimum put 128 gigabytes on the internal storage of this. I think that's like the base on like laptops, like those like cheaper like MacBook Air type laptops, or even like the sub $300 laptops. They usually have at least like 128 gigabytes in there. So I feel like this could have easily had 128 gigabytes because again, this is dedicated to playing games, and Nintendo knows how big their games can be. Obviously, Nintendo's games themselves are usually pretty good with the sizes, but they know that third-party partners that are on there, their games are just like ginormous sometimes. So it would have been really good to see at least 120 gigabytes. I mean, honestly, like I think it could have been 256, but you know, it is what it is. I think with this new thing, at least it's cool that you're gonna be able to add a little bit more games on your thing straight out the box, but you're still gonna need that micro SD card, which is unfortunate, but hey, at least there is an upgrade to that. The last feature they list here on the website is enhanced audio, which is actually something that speaks to me a lot because I'm actually a big fan of speakers. And I think it's something you could get very wrong very easily on portable devices, because how many times have we seen so many manufacturers of cell phones and tablets do the wrong thing? So let me explain, right? Here I have an iPhone. There's a speaker up here and there's a speaker down here, right? iPhone 6 and 6S generations, the speaker's on the bottom, and they used to only downfire here. But then they fixed and they added stereo to the phone. So now the earpiece is actually doubles as a speaker too. So then you're able to get that stereo type thing. With this one, obviously, it just takes the same design as the original Switch and has the speakers that shoot out at you, but now they're actually bigger. I wish they gave a little bit more detail on what this enhanced audio is. To me, I just think it just means the speakers are gonna be a little bit bigger, because for sure you can visibly see those speakers are bigger than the old ones. And I don't know, I'm hoping for maybe possibly a little bit more bass in those, but the speakers on the original Switch is actually pretty good. So this is a very, very welcome upgrade, and I'm very happy that they did this. The Joy-Cons are the same Joy-Cons that you have on your original Switch. Obviously they're new color, you know, you have the white color, which this is the first time Nintendo has released white Joy-Cons, so this is really cool. The only thing about it is that we don't know 100% if these Joy-Cons are not gonna have any drift, but we have no indication that these are drift-proof Joy-Cons, because Nintendo's never addressed the problem. Till this day, they have never addressed the problem, but hey, they make a new Switch and they add Joy-Cons on it. All we can assume is that these are the same Joy-Cons, which they are the same Joy-Cons, but we don't know if they ever fixed the drift problem on them. I'm happy at least that this Switch is the same dimensions on the parts where you put the controllers on, because it's perfect, because you can still just use your old Joy-Cons on this, and that's awesome, man. Like I do think there's some positive things to say about this, and I think a lot of people are very, very, very negative on this product, but I think that really comes from a lot of wishful thinking, man. So those are the features of the new Nintendo Switch OLED model, and before I wanted to go into my personal opinions on this entire situation, I actually wanted to bring on a guest, which is one of the biggest Nintendo fans that I know, loves the Switch just as much as I do, and you know, I wanted to give his opinions on this, because I know he's one of the people who are a lot more negative on this whole thing. So here's that little interview. Listen, I've talked about this already, so I just want to get your opinion, because JJ here is a huge fan of Nintendo, and he's a huge fan of Switch. You know, we were there together day one when the Switch was first announced, and we were super excited about it. And we finally got the quote-unquote upgrade that everyone was talking about. So, what do you think about this?
Oh, this is not it's an upgrade, truly. But oh man, it's just so sad. Like, I guess it's the leaker's fault. Like, you know, you could say that, but I really wanted like a pro model. Like, to me, it's almost the same thing. I don't feel like it's a bigger jump besides just an OLED screen that's now 7 inches, and it looks beautiful, of course. Like, I don't want to have to struggle to play Hyrule Warriors on an OLED model. When I can already do that on my Switch. It's like, oh man, I would want them to move to the next generation, but I see where the Switch still comes in handy. Like, I wouldn't mind if they phased out the original Switch, right, and then keep the light model as a thing for just like kids to have, just like a 2DS.
Yeah,
you know, like the 3DS was, you know, the regular Switch, and then the 2DS is this one black thing where people aren't breaking the Joy-Con. But it's just, I wish they would have definitely gone on. I would not have been mad at all for a Switch Pro that could run everything that I wanted to run, that finally justifies Doom Eternal being on the Switch, or Doom, or Wolfenstein, or Skyrim, or all these things where we can play them how we've always wanted to play them. I feel like the Switch is still competing with the next generation. You know, it's still selling great. It's still a very relevant thing. I don't think that it's lost its relevance at all. I'm holding out hope that there is still some possibility that they're not telling us everything just through a trailer.
Okay.
You know, if that's all that there is, I'm still gonna buy the damn thing. Like, it don't even matter. Like, it's still going in my collection. I'm gonna keep my old Switch, and I'm still gonna buy this thing.
But yeah, so those are basically all the new features and new upgrades of this new Switch. Again, it can be very lackluster if you really wanted a ginormous leap in a Switch Pro. You know how the PS4 to the PS4 Pro was. You're not getting that here. You have to look at this more like a slim version. You know, I know people would think that the Switch Lite is a slim version, but I don't think that's how you should think about it. I think the Switch Lite is genuinely just a different product. Yeah, man, so all I will say with this whole thing, I know, again, a lot of people are negative on this, a lot of people are not feeling too happy about this, but I will say this one thing. When it comes to the insiders, it comes to the leakers and everything, there is a possibility that what they were hearing was still true. And what happened is that they didn't really understand that there was multiple models of the Switch, of the new Switch or whatever. And what we got right here is just the OLED model. So I think this body of the Switch is gonna stay the same if they do make a Switch Pro. The only thing they're gonna change is that internal chip that gives us the better performances and upscaling or whatever. But I do think it will stay within the same family. I don't think Nintendo's gonna move on to a next generation or anything like that. So yeah, man, so that's really much all I have to say about this topic. If you guys like the video, make sure you guys leave a like. If you guys subscribe yet, make sure you guys subscribe, and I highly appreciate you guys watching this video. I'll catch you guys on the next one. See ya.